Hey there, friend. Welcome back to your quiet corner of the night. What time is it where you are? Midnight? 3 in the morning? Or maybe the world is just starting to turn pink outside your window. Wherever you are, wherever you're listening from, I'm glad you're here. Tonight's story isn't in a castle. It isn't in a storm. It's in steam. So go ahead, put the day down, fluff the pillow, dim the lamp. Maybe turn on a fan for that steady hum of peace. And now, in it, that's what it feels like. Your back molded into cold volcanic rock, damp with the sweat of the fireworkers who slept here before you, and one small hole near the top for smoke to leak out of, or perhaps, if you're lucky, the sound of birdsong. But this morning, it's just coughing, heavy coughing, a deep one from the lungs of Severinus, the older man who sleeps to your left. Someone else's body heat still lingers in the stone's curve where your elbow rests. It's not romantic. It's sticky, which, in Rome, makes him a lucky man. You wake up on the stone. No, not on it. The last time you did that, you knocked over the oil jug behind your head and had to clean up the spilled sesamum in the dark with your sleeve. This time you just blink. You take in the usual scents: burnt olive wood, wet towels, and sweat from 12 different regions of the empire. It's a marvel. A miracle, some say. But it's only a miracle if someone like you is crawling through it at dawn, scraping soot and rat droppings out of the flues, which you will be doing next. The bathhouse slave quarters are just one long stone bench in a room with no windows. A crawl space about as wide as your hips, and 3 times as tall as your hope. It's time for the strigil duty. It smells of ash, mold, and something vaguely dairy. You try not to think about that last part. He's been stoking the hippocausts too long. 27 years of inhaling soot. You clear the hidden filth so they can pretend the world is clean. They're warm to the touch, even here. You count this as a small blessing. You stretch, but not too far, unaware of the soot-covered slave 2 feet beneath their toes, clearing blockages so their bath doesn't become a tepid disappointment. Then, with slow strokes, you scrape it off using the dull curve of your strigil. Skin flakes, oil, dirt, and sweat roll off in greasy little vorms. Welcome back to the Roman bathhouse. That would be dangerous. You drop them into the mouth of the furnace carefully. Not too fast. Sparks catch on your tunic. You laugh quietly, not because it's funny, but because it would be dangerous not to. But your mind drifts. He doesn't acknowledge you. Just lifts his arm. Not too slow. The calderam's floor won't heat up in time. You are not here to enjoy it. So you wipe your hands on your tunic and move to the next man, who wants extra oil rubbed into his feet. You are here to make it function. And by function, I mean run like a mildly civilized sewer disguised in marble. The heat here isn't painful, just enough to loosen the pores, but it fills your stomach, sort of. Through the open colonnade, you watch free men boxing, wrestling, and hurling weighted discs with sweaty enthusiasm. The kind of warmth that makes people want to talk or sweat, or both. Your first job? Fire. Always fire. He just stands in the corner talking about stoicism. You've never heard him wash once. A copper as stamped with the face of the emperor, round and heavy and warm from the sun, left behind in a towel fold or wedged into the floor groove. You never keep them, of course. That would be theft. That would mean your hands getting broken. Your task: scrub the stone benches where bathers sit. You pour water, you scrub. The volcanic stone is rough. It shreds your knuckles without mercy. You suspect he thinks the soul can sweat out dirt. You call it sacred not because anyone worships it, but because if it goes out, the overseer swears the gods will personally beat you with your own sandals. You shuffle toward the prefernium, the sacred furnace, so you feed it. Olive logs, which smoke less, are preferred. Above your head is a labyrinth of bricks and hot air vents, the underfloor heating system the Romans are so proud of. You duck into the belly of the bathhouse. As you move forward on your elbows, your knees dragging through charred dust, your fingers feel the tiny bricks that make up the famous Roman heating system. Above you, the wealthy will later walk barefoot across these very floors. That's your job. By the time you emerge, covered in more black than skin, the overseer tosses you a dull bronze scraper. This is a delicate task, not for the faint of stomach, nor the easily offended. You wait, kneeling by the benches in the tepidarium, a warm chamber lit with yellowing light through thick glass windows. The bathers arrive. Today, you've been assigned a senator, a wide man with skin like spoiled goat cheese and the disposition of a bored crocodile. You get to work. You drizzle oil, scented with myrrh, if you're lucky, or fish if the budget's tight, across his hairy shoulder. It is both satisfying and horrifying. You must not nick the skin. That would be offensive. You must not hesitate. That would be awkward. You must not make eye contact. The senator belches loudly, then begins recounting a story about a friend who slipped in the bath and exposed himself to a crowd of ladies. By the third bather, you've scraped so many body parts that you forget what clean is supposed to look like. You think of when you were a child, before you were sold. You think of cool streams, of privacy, of not having to look at back hair in full daylight. But the past is not a helpful friend, because apparently he's a philosopher. Lunchtime comes, and you're allowed to sit. Not eat, not yet, just sit. You take your place near the palestra, the gymnasium next door to the bath complex. You notice the same guy who comes every day, but never actually bathes. You pick at a crust of barley bread and a wedge of pickled onion that tastes like someone shouted vinegar near a turnip. Above, the sky turns pale gold. The shadows of cypress trees stretch longer. Back to work. There's a bucket of crushed pumice waiting for you near the cold plunge, the frigidarium. But every now and then, you find a coin. A real one. But for just 1 second, you hold it in your palm. You imagine buying a peach or a sweet cake, and then you hand it in. Like always, you don't last long if you don't follow the rules, and you've lasted longer than most. By mid-afternoon, the light through the high windows thickens into honey. You don't notice it directly, not at first, but you feel it in the heat, a different kind of warmth, draped in thin linen, smelling like spikenard and ambition. They don't shout. They whisper, which is somehow much more terrifying. The kind that wraps around your spine and makes your legs feel slow and syrupy. This is when the true flood begins. The elite come now, not the early morning merchants with cracked heels and loud voices, but the important ones. The light plays tricks on the walls. You swear the painted dolphins above the arch look like they're blinking. A young man, barely older than you, dressed in pale yellow and gold trim. His eyes linger on your calloused hands, as if trying to place them in a painting or a nightmare. You don't stare back. You know better. You hear them before you see them. An attendant closes a curtain across one end of the chamber. A soft cough follows. Then silence. A cloth in one hand, a heartbeat in the other. The flutter of sandals. The hush of attendants. A laughter that never reaches the eyes. They move past you. They never look at you, except one. This is the hour when shadows stretch across the tepidarium in long fingers, touching the mosaic tiles with quiet ceremony. And that's when the senator from this morning returns. Not for a bath, not for another scrape, but for a meeting. He nods, not at you, of course, but to someone trailing behind. You are invisible again, but not deaf. You hear muffled voices through the steam-clipped phrases. A name, Caligula. Another, Cassius. Laughter. Then something sharper. Weird, he loves the baths. but not the way ordinary people do. You shouldn't be hearing this, but you do. You keep your hands moving across the wall. Pretend cleaning. They say the steam is good for skin, for joints, for sweat. One of them fainted from the heat. Another vomited into the plunge pool. Nobody dared to leave. But it's even better for secrets. Let's step back now. Farther back. Past your aching fingers. Past the crumbling mortar and olive ash. Rumor also says he installed bronze mirrors on the ceilings to watch his guests from above. Let's look up, high up, into the swirling marble halls of imperial Rome. Because while you scrub and scrape and vanish, up above, other kinds of bathing happen, and some of them are dangerous. It's the year 39 CE. Caligula rules Rome. And Caligula, or Gaius, as his mother called him before things got, he uses them like stages. Said it made the caldarium smell like a brothel. He said it during a massage. To a friend. In a private niche. The horse had his own marble stall. Gold oats. Possibly a better diet than most citizens. Some say Caligula planned to make him a consul. Others say the whole thing was a joke. Or a warning. Not just for pleasure, though he certainly enjoys that, but for performance, for control, for empire. He once summoned senators to the caldarium and made them stand naked while he lectured them on loyalty. A nobleman passes you, wrapped in sea blue cloth. You glimpse a snake tattoo on his ankle, a symbol of some mystery cult, maybe, or maybe just fashion. You see, in a place where everyone is naked, status becomes slippery. Caligula liked that. The bathhouses in the Palatine complex were not your neighborhood thermi. They were quieter, gilded, heavily guarded. Maybe that's a kind of blessing. Rumor says he had secret tunnels connecting his sleeping quarters to the women's changing rooms. His bath tokens, the bronze entry coins stamped with SPQR, were melted down. What's true? His tunic's still on. Not an accident, they say. His sandals were missing, which in Rome is a sign that he wasn't meant to cross over to the next world with dignity. People still come. Well, in Rome, rumor has a longer memory than marble. What we do know, Caligula used the baths to find out what people whispered when they thought the water made them invisible. He would walk barefoot through the steam, his pet horse not far behind. Yes, that one, Incitatus. Either way, the horse was cleaner than you. There's one famous story. A man named Lentulus, a wealthy merchant, connected but careless, made an offhand remark about the emperor's choice of perfumes. The masseuse was an informant. Somewhere, someone is playing a tibia, a soft reed flute. Lentulus disappeared within 3 days. His house was sealed. The steam doesn't just hide secrets. It eats them. You return to your body now, the one crouching by the warm pool, scooping out beetles with a ladle made from hollow bone. He does not see you. You watch a trail of ants move purposefully across the cracked step in front of you. One of them carries a breadcrumb twice its size. No one does. And maybe, because in the higher rooms, behind locked doors, naked senators recline on stone slabs, whispering alliances, reciting lines of Virgil to sound cultured, and casually planning betrayals between oil massages. It's all very civilized, all very clean, until someone ends up missing. Later that week, you hear about a drowning. A man found face down in the frigidarium. You never knew his name, but you remember his scream. You heard it through the pipes. Water carries sound very well, and yet they always come. To cleanse, to soak, to be seen. Because in Rome, being seen was half the point of being. The bathhouse was not just for dirt. It was for status, for politics, for rumor, for revenge. You were never safer than when you were silent. Never safer than when you were unseen. The fire dies down. Your shift ends. You sit outside the bath complex, your back against the warm stone wall. You listen to the wind. It smells faintly of rosemary from the hills. The city winds down slowly, but never entirely. Not here. You stretch your sore fingers. You think even ants have tasks, and maybe less politics. You don't remember falling asleep, but when you wake again, the stone is warm. Not from the sun, you reef far beneath that, but from the day as heat soaking into the building itself. Rome is like that. It stores warmth, holds onto it, radiates it back at you, even after the world above has cooled. You stretch. Slowly, carefully. Every joint complains in its own dialect. You're still in your tunic, still barefoot, and still bone-tired. The overseer's voice drifts down the stairwell, not calling you, exactly, but calling someone, and you know from experience that ignoring a vague summons is worse than responding to one that wasn't meant for you. So you rise. Your body aches in places you didn't know you had yesterday. There's a scratch on your forearm that wasn't there before. You notice your nails are black at the edges again. Char, from the furnace, or maybe from crawling through the hippocausts. Hard to tell anymore. The stone walls close in around you like ribs of a sleeping beast. The air thickens, not warm, just wet, heavy with moisture and age. Don't hum. Don't pray too loud. Don't think angry thoughts. The water listens. He sends you lower this time. Not into the main baths. Not even into the furnace chambers. He sends you below. To the place no one talks about. Now it's just a mossy depression, with weeds growing where swimmers once floated under the stars. The staircase down is narrow, carved right into the limestone, uneven and bowed in the middle from centuries of footfalls. A single torch is handed to you, already lit. It sputters, smells faintly of fish oil and bitter smoke. Just old. You descend slowly. Your footsteps echo. No one's spoken to you. That's part of the task. You pass through without stopping. The air is stale. The dust clings to your skin like ancient breath. They never say it aloud, but the older slaves whisper, "Don't speak once you're down there." Basalt and black marble, veins of quartz shimmering faintly as your torchlight flickers. Fewer still are sent to maintain it, and only under orders. Never by choice. You used to laugh at that, but not anymore. There are 4 chambers beneath the main bathhouse. The uppermost is a supply room. Broken amphorae, half-rotted towels, stacks of bricks, and oil jars, so old their tops have fused shut. The second chamber holds the abandoned natatio, an open-air pool that was once used for rituals, but has long since caved in. You pause at the threshold. Something about it makes you pause. Not even when you exhale. The torch casts a long golden streak across its surface, but nothing moves, not even a shimmer. A stillness, not threatening, like you've walked in on a god sleeping and don't want to wake it. The third chamber is where the real task lies. The sacred pool, when wolves still howled across the Tiber, when people carved gods into wood and tied fish bones to their hair. That wherever Romans built heat and water and steam, the earth whispered, and someone listened. Not many know it exists. As if the stone beneath your feet remembered something it was trying to forget. You duck under a low arch, and the walls become darker, not from lack of light, but from stone itself. The tunnel turns and opens into a space that smells like deep earth and copper coins. There it is. The pool. It's small, circular, the size of a cartwheel. But it's deep, unnaturally deep. You peer in, and it doesn't ripple. You dip your fingers in, and everything vanishes. The heat, the aches, the voices from upstairs, gone. All that's left is cold, not biting, but final, like a door closing behind you. You feel something shift at the bottom. Not move, just shift. You pull your hand back, shake it dry. There's no scent, no residue, just stillness. They say this pool is older than Rome, that it was here when the hill was a forest. And they say that every bathhouse in the empire is built above something like this. The sacred water was never meant to cleanse the body. It was meant to quiet the spirit, to remind it where it came from. You kneel and begin the task. Slowly, carefully, scoop water with a curved shell. Wipe the stone edge. Pick out the fallen leaves that drift down through cracks in the ceiling. Scrub gently at the green moss that creeps along the rim. You move without sound. The coins at the bottom glint faintly, not like treasure, more like ghosts. Each one an offering, a whisper, a wish, a regret. They're all corroded, mostly bronze, one silver. Some have holes punched through from old amulets. Others are shaped oddly, Greek, Gallic, even Egyptian. You spot one with a scarab on it. You do not touch them. You're not here to collect, only to remember. You finish the cleaning and sit back on your heels. The torch burns low now. The smoke curls upward, tracing invisible patterns into the curved ceiling. You notice something, a carving, lips curled slightly, not in a smile, more like patience. A god, perhaps, or a guardian, or something else entirely. Half hidden by algae and age. You stand and lean close. It's a face, oval, empty eyes. You stare at it too long and blink. When you look again, it's just stone. You don't say a word. You simply nod and turn to leave. You hear a dripping sound, but it doesn't seem to come from any direction, just all around. The walk back feels longer. You pass through the collapsed Natatio again. You reach the stairs. The upper levels hum faintly. Laughter, footsteps, the splash of bathers still lingering in the upper pools. You wonder if they know what lies below them. You wonder if they care. Centuries later, when the bathhouse's ruins and pigeons nest in the corners, archaeologists will find this chamber. They'll call it anomalous. They'll photograph the coins, measure the pool, note the echo. It's quiet now. The sun has nearly set. Shadows stretch lazily across the floor, weaving between pillars like slow-moving cats. But they won't step into the water, because one of them will drop a coin accidentally, and though it won't make a splash, they'll swear they saw it vanish before touching the surface. And they'll feel cold for the rest of the day. Back in your world, you're assigned to towel duty. You carry dry linens from the storage room and fold them beside the tepidarium. You stack the towels neatly. Your fingers move without thought. But your mind is far away, still beneath the stone, still watching the water not move, still feeling the presence of something that didn't have a name. The overseer will count tokens and whisper to his ledger like it owes him affection. And in a strange way, you feel cleaner than you did all day. Not in body, but in memory. The baths will close soon. The braziers will be put out. The coals will be raked. The perfumed oils capped and locked. The highborn will return to their villas. The slaves will curl into corners of brick. And you? You will sit again beneath the fig tree, not because it's comfortable, but because it's yours. And as the final light fades, and Rome sighs into twilight, you think about the stillness beneath your feet. And you wonder if the water ever dreams of the people above it. You wake in linen. It is the 6th hour, that soft, forgiving time when the sun is no longer directly above, and the world seems briefly bearable again. A slave opens the shutters. The breeze smells like crushed bay leaves and distant bread. Somewhere outside your villa, a cartwheel screeches and is quickly shushed by a house servant running too fast for his sandals. You do not get up. Not yet. The day is already arranged for you. Appointments inked by other hands, food prepared by other fingers, decisions made before you ever open your eyes. There's no need to. Your only task today is the thermi. You are, after all, a Ramong patrician, a senator, even on the days when you feel like pretending to care. a landowner, a philosopher on Tuesdays, a lover of stoicism, Epicureanism, and whatever sounds impressive at dinner. But more than anything, you are a man of leisure. And leisure requires maintenance. The bathhouse you frequent is not one of those overcrowded public caverns that reek of cumin and ambition. Yours is different, named after someone important, or at least wealthy. It smells of myrrh, marble dust, and power. Tucked discreetly into the palatine, it caters to those who do not like being jostled. Those who arrive with small entourages and large egos. The Thermae Valentinae. You arrive on a litter. 4 well-oiled slaves carry you in with a slight wobble on the last step. The tall one, again. Brass basins catch flickers of firelight and bounce them up onto high domes carved with spirals and sea creatures. He'll be disciplined later. Gently, of course. A stern look, perhaps. You're not a monster. Everyone smells like cedarwood and quiet anxiety. Inside, the light is different. Everything glows. His hands do not tremble. That's good. The last one trembled, and you had to request a different boy. It was awkward for everyone. Not from the sun. The windows are tinted with polished mica, but from the stone. Veined marble floors reflect golden oil lamps. You disrobe, publicly, casually. A man of your rank does not fumble with laces or look down when bending. Your toga, a masterpiece of starch and draping, is taken by an attendant who bows lower than necessary. You step into the appetiterium, the changing hall, barefoot and bored. Around you, other men of similar breeding discuss real estate, poetry, and affairs, none of which are theirs. Your body is oiled. Not by yourself, of course. A young servant, imported from somewhere suitably exotic, pours warm scented oil down your arms. You do not speak to him. Not out of cruelty, just efficiency. The strigil is next. Artful coincidence. The man beside you quotes Catullus without attribution. You let it pass. Quoting is one thing. Remembering who wrote it is for scribes. The curved bronze scraper glides across your skin, pulling away oil, dust, dead cells, and something else. Fatigue, maybe. You exhale slowly. You don't realize you've been holding your breath since breakfast. This is the real ritual. The scraping of the day from your skin. You don't know him, which means he either inherited money or made it uncomfortably fast. Either way, he'll be watched. The reminder that beneath everything, the lawmaking, the bribes, the letters from your mother, you are simply flesh. And flesh must be maintained. You glide into the tepidarium. High ceilings. Alcoves shaped like seashells. Lanterns float in pools of hot water. There is no echo here. Every sound is absorbed into the heat. Not staring, just flicking glances during conversations. You wonder what he did? Or what he owns? A pair of philosophers argue about the nature of time while pouring cold water on their feet. The temperature is perfect. Always? Not warm, not cool. Just enough to remind you that you exist. Someone hums a hymn to Apollo. A child runs past, giggling, chased by a red-faced uncle. No one minds. Columns rise like gods around you, carved with vines and dolphins and the occasional heroic figure who looks suspiciously like the bathhouse owner. You recline on a stone bench, towel folded behind your neck. Across the room, a new face appears. He's younger, clean-shaven, muscular, but trying not to show it. Baths are social currency. They are also surveillance. You notice 2 senators watching him. You sip lukewarm mulsum from a tiny silver cup and decide not to care until tomorrow. Eventually, you move to the caldarium. The steam hits you like a damp curtain, heavy, scented, forgiving. This room is built like a temple. A man is being massaged in the corner, his moans muffled by a towel in his mouth. You sit in the shallow pool, waist deep, watching the mist dance above the surface. You close your eyes and forget what day it is. The best part of the bathhouse is not the water. It is the invisibility it offers. The Senate chamber is full of rules, the villa full of obligation, the streets full of smells and curses and noise. But here everyone is bare, equal, briefly irrelevant. Even the emperor, when he visits, pretends not to mind being naked, though he always brings double the bodyguards and a eunuch to test the temperature first. You've spoken to emperors here. Not directly, of course, but once Tiberius complimented the eucalyptus scent in the tepidarium. It wasn't your blend, but you nodded, modestly. That was enough. It became your story for the next decade. You emerge, finally, into the frigidarium. It's always a shock, like being slapped by a god in a snowstorm. But you endure it, because you must. To skip the cold plunge is to admit weakness. You wade in slowly. A low gasp escapes your throat. Your skin tightens. Every nerve perks up like a startled cat. You dip under. One breath, eyes closed. And when you rise, you feel possible. Not clean, not cured, not reborn. Just possible. Not because you re-rude, but because he wouldn't to know what to do with gratitude. And that's all you really ask of your days now. A slave wraps you in wool. You don't thank him. You sit beneath the colonnade with a bowl of figs and dates. Someone has brought chilled wine, the kind stored in clay jars buried in snow, carried down from the mountains. You sip. You listen to the wind. You talk politics lightly, as if nothing could ever truly change. Because here, under the arches, on the edge of steam and silence, the world feels suspended. Later, as the lamps are lit and the shadows grow long, you think of the younger version of yourself, the one who first entered these baths with trembling hands and borrowed sandals. And you wonder what he'd think of you now, polished, powerful, alone, but clean. Far below you, the sacred pool sleeps. It doesn't know your name. It never will. But the steam from its waters still rises through the stone, warming the walls, feeding the fire, carrying the dreams of men who thought they ruled the world, and men who never had the chance. And somewhere, in that silence, a coin shifts on the bottom of the pool, just slightly, just enough, and the water remembers you.